On this special edition of Independent Sources, the Crown Heights incident, how a flashpoint over racial tension in that Brooklyn neighborhood sparked change in the city and its repercussions throughout the country. The details coming up. Welcome to Independent Sources, bringing you news from New York's ethnic and immigrant communities. I'm Gary Pierre. 25 years ago, simmering racial tensions erupted in Crown Heights, Brooklyn. The unrest lasted days, but it exposed decades of neglect that had earned the city a reputation of being unmanageable. In the aftermath, New York City learned a valuable lesson on how to deal with its diversity and became a model for the rest of the country for how a city should handle conflicts among its various ethnic groups. With me in studio to talk about that incident and its repercussions are Richard Green, the founder of the Crown Heights Youth Collective, political activist Devorah Alberstam, and Stephanie Wilchford, president and CEO of the Brooklyn Children's Museum.
Welcome.
Thanks so much for having us.
Well, Richard, let's start with you. What was Crown Heights like back then, 25 years ago, and what really were relations between the Jewish and mostly West Indians living there at the time?
Gary, that's a great question. I think you mentioned in your introduction of the piece, where the communities had sort of became estranged to each other because we had no real reason to be and talk with each other. But Crown Heights gave us that reason. Out of the crisis of Crown Heights was the opportunity for us to begin to meet the community members, the Jewish community members. I had been working in Crown Heights. I've been in Crown Heights now since I was 10 years old. I came to live there, so I'd been there a while. But I had an opportunity to know the community, but the new arrivals who came in were not as privy to meeting their neighbors. So we were like two ships passing in the night. We just kind of picked each other up and kept going. And 1991 August was that moment in history that gave us that chance to begin to know our Jewish community members, to know others, and to begin to talk to each other, and begin to blend ourselves with the needs. What are the needs of that community were universal needs that both communities, others coming in, all had. And as you know, there are 43 islands that are represented in our Crown Heights. And it's almost like, you might say, being in the Balkans. From one block to the next block, you're changing. And we were able to do many good things in 25.
Well, let's hold on. That's part of the discussion. I want to get Stephanie involved in here and ask her, basically, what sparked this? What happened that led to what became known as the Crown Heights riots, which I call a disturbance, but that's something else. What happened there?
Well, I'm a relative newcomer to this conversation, but a longtime Brooklynite. And I think Richard is right. The fact that the communities were not coming into regular contact with each other and not finding common purpose was part of what fomented this. And one of the things that Brooklyn Children's Museum did in the aftermath and continues to do is provide a common space for families to come together. Crown Heights is really a neighborhood of families. And Brooklyn is a borough of families. And we come together around our children and we find common purpose around our children. We all want the best for our children. That is something we all share. So places like Brooklyn Children's Museum, places like Brower Park, places like Prospect Park and Brooklyn Botanic Gardens and the Jewish Children's Museum are places where all of our families can come together and meet and find common purpose and see each other and actually get to know each other a little bit. And that is what helps inure us to this kind of conflict coming up again and again.
Devorah, let's talk about this particular point. I mean, is this a simple fact that people were not talking to each other that led to this, or was it there some simmering tensions?
I actually, with all due respect, Richard, I disagree with you on that. I think it was actually the event of what happened on that day, because I think the people who
give me 1 second. I think we've been dancing around it. A lot of people don't know what happened. So let's recap.
Well, okay. So what took place really on that day was there was the Hatzalah ambulance service, which is a private Jewish ambulance service, had been in a motorcade with the Grand Rabbi of the Chabad Lubavitch, which is on Eastern Parkway headquarters. And they were coming through from Eastern Parkway, and there was an accident that pursued. Richard, I think you tell the story a lot better because you know exactly what happened on Utica Avenue. No, because Richard is really, he tells it exactly. And actually, they passed the red light, and there was an actual, it jumped the curb, hit Gavin Cato, which was a African American child, and unfortunately, and also another black child, and Gavin Cato actually died. Now, what pursued after that was really not the event that actually took place, because it was an accident. But unfortunately, the people who surrounded where the community, whoever was around the thing, they immediately came, and people started to get very angry because they said it was done on purpose, etc., etc. The Hatzalah ambulance actually left the scene because they were told by law enforcement, go away, because people were very angry, although they wanted to administer help. So what took place after that, after they left, people were very angry. The people who came from, that's why I say it was that event, because it was actually people from outside the community that actually came into the community that started a protest. It just got out of hand and started from actually Utica Avenue, which it took place, and started to march with all kinds of horrible rhetoric. And ultimately, and actually I saw it firsthand because I myself lived on Eastern Parkway. So I always told this to Richard, until this very day, I couldn't believe the sounds that I heard and saw the scenes that actually took place. I will never forget it because I'm an American girl. And this to me was just in the United States of America. I just couldn't believe this could happen. Ultimately, the thing was, a lot of it was kill the Jews, and they were marching down President Street, and they actually came to Brooklyn Avenue, where there was actually just this innocent young man called Yankel Rosenbaum who was actually walking down the street, and one of the members of the group, who was Lemrick Nelson, had a knife and he stabbed him. So that really, and well, he ultimately died from the stab wound, which was leaking. And when he went to Kings County Hospital, he bled to death. If they would have paid closer attention, he wouldn't have actually died from this. He
was from Australia.
He was actually from Australia, and then of course it was called the riots. But what led? That was the initial thing that took place. That was the incident. So that's why I disagree with you. I don't know if I don't think it was actually the people in the community that were part of it. It was actually
they were what. When I came onto the scene that evening, I got a call from City Hall asking me what is happening in Crown Heights, and they asked me to go to the precinct, which is the 71st precinct. When I got to the precinct, soon after that, Mayor Dinkins and at that time the police commissioner was off, but there was another person that came, and we all met at the precinct. And at that particular moment, Yankel Rosenbaum was still alive because the mayor had left seeing him at Kings County Hospital and came to the precinct, and he asked, well, what should we do? The question was, we need to set up some sort of a place where people could come and find out information, what have you. But I want to be clear that what happened on Utica, once they found that Yankel Rosenbaum had died, when I got out the Eastern Parkway, right across from 770, there was a large group of young people from the Hasidic community there, and a large group of black youths coming from Utica, and it met up at Albany. Between the two groups, and there were rocks flying. In fact, a police officer was hit in the head by a rock, fell out. They couldn't even get an ambulance to him. And that's where we were there to try to keep the two groups from clashing with each other. But the young people from the Hasidic community was just as angry when they heard that Yankel Rosenbaum had died. So we had Gavin Cato, who had died, and of course you mentioned the Hatzalah ambulance. The fact that the Hatzalah is what's called a basic life support ambulance. They're not for advanced.
Right.
This was advanced trauma that we're dealing with. So that's why that ambulance took off. The police officers, there were two black police officers, and I personally asked them, and they said, yes, we gave them the instructions to go.
To leave.
9 minutes from the time the accident took place was an ALS ambulance from Kings County there, and took the Angela, which was the young
Right.
boy's, young Gavin's cousin,
Cousin, right.
and Gavin took Kings County, and of course Gavin expired at Kings County, but Angela, thank God, she was,
Survived.
she survived.
Stephanie, the mayor was soundly criticized for his handling of these incidents that followed the original accident. Now, is the community more mature, able to deal with something like this if it were to happen without it becoming, an international incident?
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's in large part because of the work that people like Richard Green and Devorah Halberstam have done.
And Project CARE
And
as well.
Project CARE. Project CARE was a group that came together after 1991 to make sure that there were relationships being built, that there was a fabric to the community.
Who was part of Project CARE?
Richard, do you want to talk? And Devorah, you both, I think, know
Well, we
Project
have
CARE
Reverend
personally.
Art Kaplan and
The Reverend.
the Reverends. We had Reverend Norman, the late Reverend Norman was a big part of it.
Right.
And a number of other people who came along and just began to communicate. Dr. Lazarson was part of the original group, and he moved on to Florida. But I think what Steph is saying, that we have now the instruments. We have Project CARE, we have the museum, which is going to house, we have the Jewish Children's Museum. We're going to have a joint hosting of a commemoration of the anniversary, the 25th year of Crown Heights, bringing the community out, bringing the community together. But one other piece that I'm very clear about as we speak about this is that we have to continuously talk to others coming in the community to begin to create a marriage of people coming in to make sure that we have this in place once it happens. 6 months after we had South Central, we had Washington Heights, and we were prepared, as you put it so well.
Stay tuned. There's more to come on our special edition of Independent Sources. Welcome back to our special edition of Independent Sources, the Crown Heights incident 25 years later. Stephanie, earlier we were talking about Project Hope. CARE, I'm sorry, Project CARE. I'd like to know more about that. Let's talk a little bit more about the mechanism of it, why people came together, and more or less succinctly, what framework did you guys lay out and build upon?
So Project CARE brought together constituents around the community in the multiple different kinds of ethnic groups that are in the neighborhood to just talk on a very regular basis about things that were happening in the community, and also on a regular basis to commemorate the anniversary of these incidents. Everybody understands the weight of this history. Everybody understands that 1991 was a really seminal moment for the neighborhood, for Brooklyn, for New York City, and for the country, really. So on a regular basis, Project CARE comes together, brings together different neighborhood activists, thought leaders, people working in the community to talk about how we mark this and how we make sure it doesn't happen again. That's been happening for 25 years now. The group is an amazing group of people. I've gotten very much to know them in the last 2 years, and you can see that there is extraordinary will to ensure that this doesn't happen again, that the relationships are in place, that we know each other, that everybody is just a phone call away when something happens.
Devorah, are there still tensions in Crown Heights?
Well, we're like any other community. There always are, but I think more individual. I wouldn't say it's collectively that way. I would say so. You may have an incident here or there that just happens between two people, or somebody's angry at a neighbor for whatever reason, or people. But I think mostly we're good. I think we have really we all look out for each other. And I like that because, my neighbors are my neighbors, no matter who they are or where they come from. And I think that's, in that way, I think we have grown. I know that people go out of their way today to say hello to the next neighbor, where I don't know that we did that years ago. So I think there has been movement on that way to be more neighborly and to again, to look out for each other when anything is going on in the community. So people will tell each other, let's call each other, let's email each other. So I think we've grown quite a bit.
I would also say that the community institutions in the neighborhood, places like Crown Heights Youth Collective and Brooklyn Children's Museum, Jewish Children's Museum, also Weeksville, and many of the other institutions that carry the history and the community service are stronger today than they were 25 years ago. And they are stronger because of the incredible investment of people after the Crown Heights riots.
Sure. Richard, there's been new blood coming into Crown Heights the last 15 years, and it's a very different place than it was 25 years ago. Are things better now for the young white professionals who are moving into Crown Heights?
Well, that's a good question, Gary. It's such that now we've had the lessons, we've had the opportunities, as I said, following Crown Heights. If you remember in history, we had Washington Heights, we had South Central LA. We had all of these incidents, and each time we used Crown Heights as a model. It was a time when we had a higher level of coverage in the news than the Soviet Union breaking up. That was just how Crown Heights became. But I'm saying that to say that the new folks that are now arriving, we make all effort, I know we do at the Youth Collective, to make all effort to bring them in and let them understand the specialness about our community. Let them understand the amount of wealth of great resources that we have in the community, and the opportunity for us to now be able to take those resources and continue to build. 25 years just went by like that, it seems like. So we have another 25 years now to get busy building and rebuilding and making sure that our communities are strong. And we want to be the model. We want to be that model community. So I say to our new arrivals coming into the community, come on in, find out the things that we're doing, get involved with the Project Care, the museums, find out the things that the Youth Collective is doing. And we've done some things together with the young people coming in and the gardening program that we do, and try to just get them involved.
So who are the new leaders? I mean, right now, I mean, like you say, you've been there, you're an institution unto yourself, Richard, but the young white professionals who are moving in, who are they representing in the mix?
Well, even in the Jewish community, we have Barry Sugar now, who is a younger group, and Barry and I and his group of people, Shamrim, Shmira, those young people that are part of the Jewish patrols, I have a communication with them. As mentioned, we have the opportunity to have our social media metrics that we could talk to each other, communicate with each other. And for the other young people that are coming in now, we are reaching out. We're reaching out. I know I am.
The Crown Heights, again, is smack in the middle of it. There's sort of a gentrification that's happening all over the city and in the country. And how is Crown Heights dealing with that? And is this going to be a model as well? Because there's a lot of resentment all over communities about people being pushed out of their own neighborhoods.
Well, I don't think it's about people being pushed out. I think the number one problem that we're having with the gentrification is housing. Because I think the rent hikes have been astronomical for all the people who have lived there before.
But in some ways, that's been pushed out. If you've been priced out and you can't afford it.
Well, that's true. Or people are staying, but I guess landlords are raising the rents, and so all the young people are suffering from it. But that is really going on all over the city. I wouldn't say it belongs to Crown Heights.
No.
But we educate, our agency, we educate our population about the mayor has a new program now to work with people going into housing courts. We work with them in terms of finding the resources, people who are back in rent. We've been able to get mothers who have been able to pay, the city has paid up parts of their rents for them so that they're not being evicted. We need to continue to educate our communities how to hold on to their properties, how to hold on to their apartments. And that's what we do with the collectives work.
I would agree that displacement is very much a presence in the neighborhood. I think the other thing, and something that's close to my heart as a cultural institution leader, is thinking about how we make sure people's communities are not invisible. People's cultures are not invisible. Crown Heights has a really rich tapestry of history and culture. And we have to continually, in our cultural institutions, make sure we are reflecting all of those cultures so that no community feels invisible. That is also true in the political process. The political process has to be inclusive of all communities. The communities have to feel like they are visible and present and very much a part of a shared common purpose.
That's a very good point, because one of the criticisms of the Hasidic community at the time was that they were very insular. They didn't reach out to anyone. They kept to themselves a little bit too much. And so the effort is being made now to make sure that people don't develop little cocoon of their own.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Jewish Children's Museum is a great example of an organization that's making sure to reflect the culture of of different communities, and also inviting people in to see what that culture looks like and to learn more about that culture. So,
And Richard and me work on it. We continuously have this ongoing conversation from people all over, actually,
And what we do with the cops.
and what we do. Both of us.
That's very
yeah,
important.
we both do it.
Yeah.
Let's hold that thought. Stay tuned. When we come back, a few final thoughts from our guest. Thanks for staying tuned to a special edition. Richard, you mentioned the police earlier. There were a lot of criticism about the police response, and by extension, City Hall response. As we move forward, what were some of the lessons learned from a law enforcement and from a political standpoint?
Well, I have to be always unequivocally that the mayor, I think at that time, Mayor Dinkins, did an excellent job in how he responded. I was part of that initial response. Today, we're doing things still with the cops. There's an old saying, one old captain used to say, Mr. Green, in Crown Heights, we have blacks, blues, and Jews, and we have to figure out a way to get them all working together, and that's what we do. And Devorah works with the NCO program. I think you might want to speak about that, what we're doing now.
What is the NCO?
Well, it's brand new that the
What does
mayor has.
NCO stand for?
Neighborhood, community policing and organizing.
Organizing.
Yeah,
or something.
neighborhood community.
So they have like 4, let's say, police officers assigned to the community, which is very significant and important. So people can reach out to the police department if they have any issues that they'd like to discuss that are community related. And it's brand new.
Those cops are assigned to that particular area, that sector, all the time. So you have a person that, to go to an issue in Crown Heights that time. That was one of the issues, and we were able, that time, Inspector Loesch and Inspector Kennedy, we had the police department where we were able to talk to them and kind of keep that mellowed out. That Crown Heights could have really, when you saw what happened in South Central, even what happened afterwards, we could have had basically the same, but we were able, Chief Gallagher at the time, we were able to go to the chief and say, Chief, if you could hold your officers back, we'll move these youths out of here. And that's how we were able to hold Crown Heights and not let it get to the point where it became critical mass.
Stephanie, last year, the Black Lives Movement really took off, and the city dealt with it very differently from other parts of the country, other places in the country. Was Crown Heights, the effect of Crown Heights, one of the reasons, do you think, that the city was able to deal with massive protests in a way that no other city could?
I think it's absolutely true that the lessons of the Crown Heights riots or conflict
disturbances.
The events of August 1991 have had an incredible effect on the city, and it's very much on the mind of all of our municipal agencies as they think about response to these issues. I think that, one of the things that, one of the important things about the Black Lives Matter movement was the recognition of the truth in that. And I think the city recognized some truth in it and responded with recognition of that truth. And I can just speak from our experience at Brooklyn Children's Museum. As that was unfolding, we have a very significant teen program. Our teens create their own exhibit every year. And they specifically created their exhibit last year about the Black Lives Matter movement because it's so much affected their lives as young people of color. It was so much in their minds. It was something that they were so passionate about that they felt that they needed to create art about it. And that's really also something that I think has happened in the last 25 years is cultural institutions have become a conduit for that kind of social activism, that kind of social thinking, a place where teens can come together and create art about something that so powerfully affects their lives. And that is happening in Crown Heights every single day because there are so many amazing cultural institutions.
And Chief Jaffe brought us together the other day with Starbucks. We had 40 young people and the cops coming in and sitting together and let the sparks fly a little bit, and then they began conversation that mellowed out. And the Inspector Lott came in from his precinct and brought his cops in. So that's something that we're doing now with Chief Jaffe, the Community Affairs.
Devorah, most people who live in the city don't know how beautiful Crown Heights is. Can you talk about the physical beauty of Crown Heights?
Well, we have really beautiful homes in Crown Heights, and I think it's quite a clean community as well. I think people are pretty respectful. I mean, the actual people who live in the neighborhood, they don't throw garbage on the floor. I mean, that's like having a lot of self-respect. And even when you go down Kingston Avenue or Nostrand Avenue, for the most part, I'd say it's, we need a little bit of maybe upgrading in certain, and everybody's trying to work on that. But other than that, I think it compared to other communities, I think Crown Heights is actually very beautiful. And Eastern Park is magnificent. There are some places that are actually magnificent, but even some of the streets, I know the street I live on is very beautiful, and many others. So
and Brower Park. I mean,
Brower Park is stunning.
Stunning, shared park. It is shared space. We maintain it as shared space. We love it as shared space. The Friends of Brower Park is an incredible community organization that does wonderful work there. It has a butterfly garden. It has a sprinkler. It has awesome basketball courts. And every weekend you can see families using Brower Park in a really wonderful common purpose way.
And I just want to make one other point that I think which is extremely important. We didn't touch on it. When you go past the parks today and you see the Hasidic boys and the teenagers of African American kids, they play basketball together, and it is quite fascinating if you're an outsider. Those are the kinds of moments you need to freeze in time and say that's where we've grown.
Well, on Wednesday we have that group, the family day between the precinct and the parks. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. I know this is 25 minutes, and we could go on and on and on. It's a fascinating topic, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, it was great.
That's our show this week. Thanks to my guests, Stephanie Wilford, Richard Green, and Devorah Halberstam. Till next time, be independent-minded.